Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. This is the place where we talk to amazing entrepreneurs who are crushing it right now and really deconstructing, identifying the principles, the tools, the resources, the things that they are doing to help them to create tremendous success in the world today. Today, we have an amazing guest. This is a man who I met at a marketing event several years ago and instantly was very drawn into his story. And we're going to dive into this today. We are talking to Drew Manning, who is a New York Times bestselling author and the owner and creator of Fit to Fat to Fit. Is that fascinating?
That's
Drew,
correct.
welcome to the show.
Hey, Katie, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, super excited to dive into your story. And the thing that has me really excited to talk to you is you're a man who, as I have watched and observed you as an entrepreneur, I feel like you are very in tune with your customers and clients. And from that place, you're able to make decisions that maybe nobody else has ever made before. And so really excited to hear more about your thought process, how you approach business, because I know you're a man with a big heart. You're here because you genuinely want to help and serve people. And I think that's so critical for other entrepreneurs to see. And I want to tell us the story of a time, a moment, an experience that you feel has really shaped and formed who you are today.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We were talking before this, how it's hard to just pick one moment because there's so many, to be honest with you. But I think for me, one of the most defining moments, I think most people have defining moments that have to do with hardships or being broken down or rock bottom moments. And for me, that was about 5 or 6 years ago when I went through my divorce and left my religion at the same time. Those two things are really huge parts of our identity, right? And so for me, it was this huge identity crisis. Who am I without this marriage, right? Who am I without being a husband? Who am I without this belief system, this religion that I grew up with? And then it's like you figure out who you are. And so I think people go through this in different ways, different forms. I think everyone goes through it in one way or another. But for me, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, going through those two things at the same time and having my rock bottom moment and then trying to figure out who I was. So I went through this long self-discovery process and turned something that was, I used to think was, a failure. I used to think I was a failure going through these things and going through the guilt and the shame, but then learning to release that and discovering who I truly was without those things was really remarkable. And so in the end, fast forward to today, I'm really grateful for those things happening, even though at the time they were painful, they were hard. I didn't want them to happen. No one wants to go through hell. Like no one wants to hit rock bottom, but those moments really can be opportunities for us for growth in this world that we live in. And so for me, I'm grateful for those things because they've really shaped who I am today and really developed some self-love instead of the self-hate cycle that I've kind of grew up with, and releasing that and getting out of that cycle and developing some self-love, some more self-awareness. And today it's weird. I'm actually grateful for those things.
Wow. I think that's such an inspiring story and one that every entrepreneur can relate to. We've all gone through some sort of an experience where we feel maybe in our pit of despair, and you found your way out of it. Are there some tools, resources, experts that helped you find your way out of that darkness?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of people, but first and foremost, my life coach, her name is Catherine Dixon. She's based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. She was the first person that really helped me during this crisis to learn or develop some self-love and realize that I was lovable despite my past, despite my weaknesses, my failures, my shortcomings. She was the first person that really helped me see some light at the end of the tunnel of like, oh, I am still lovable. I am worthy of love, even though, I defined myself as a failure because, that was the way I was programmed to think, that if you get divorced, then you're a failure, right? And so, but then also I learned about meditation, which is something I didn't grow up learning about. That was really strange.
Yeah.
Journaling, gratitude list, positive affirmations were a part of that process.
Okay.
I would throw that in there. And then obviously some amazing books. I'll just name a couple, but The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Oh, good.
Loving What Is by Byron Katie.
Yes.
And Daring Greatly by Brene Brown were a few of the books. There was many that I read, but those are the three that come to mind.
So good. Life coaches, journaling, meditation, 3 incredible books.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're not in your pit of despair, those are all things that would benefit anybody, whatever position they're in their life.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. One of the things that really fascinated me with you when I first met you is, you were asking a new question. You are an expert in the fitness and health and wellness space, and you were a trainer, and you had people coming to you who felt like you didn't understand their pain, and that you didn't know what it's like to be so overweight because you had been healthy and an athlete and trim your whole life. And rather than sit there and argue with them, you listened to them, you had empathy, you had understanding, and you asked a new question like, wow, maybe I don't know what that's like. Walk us through that process of how you started to make some really bold decisions in your life, and tell the audience what you ultimately ended up doing.
Yeah, so that's a good segue into my fit to fat to fit story. I grew up my entire life in shape. I grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters, and we all played sports. So football and wrestling were part of my life. I was always, active. So for me, being in shape came very naturally. It was easy for me because of the lifestyle I was living. So in 2009, became certified as a trainer because I knew health and fitness was something I was passionate about, and I wanted to help people with that journey. But here I was, someone who had never been overweight a day in my life, trying to
Wow.
help people who were overweight pretty much the majority of their life. And it's like, okay, well, what do I know about it? I figured it was easy. Like, you just stop eating the junk food and go to the gym, like, and eat healthy food. Like, why is it so hard for people just to do it? For me, it was like, it's so easy, but for other people, it's so hard. And I had a client tell me, Drew, you don't understand how hard it is for me or for people like me, because for you, it's always been easy. And when he said that, I took that to heart. I was like, you know what? I can't argue against that. I was like, you're right. I don't understand. Like, for me, it seems so simple and easy. You just do it, So anyways, this idea popped up in my head. Like, what if I got fat on purpose? I know that sounds crazy, but for me, it was like this light bulb went off, like, oh, this might be a good idea. And so I started checking in with friends and family, like, hey, I have this crazy idea. Like, am I crazy, or should I do this, or what? And so people were like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I learned how to, start my own website, my own YouTube channel. And my wife at the time, I was like, hey, let's do, like, can you help me with this journey? And so she filmed a lot of it. And before you know it, I was, 6 months, I decided to gain weight. I stopped exercising, ate all the junk food that I wanted, mostly processed food. And we could talk about that, but gained 75 pounds of pure fat in 6 months.
Wow.
And before you know it, the story went viral. TV shows like Dr. Oz and Jay Leno and Good Morning America were calling me and having me on, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a marketing strategy or media connections. I just kind of had this idea of, like, maybe this will give me a better understanding and maybe people want to follow along. And before you know it, the thing went viral and it got me on all these TV shows and press. And then a book deal happened. And then out of the book became a New York Times bestseller. And then the book got turned into a TV show where I had my own TV show on A&E called Fit to Fat to Fit, of course, where we put other trainers through this process so that they could learn more empathy. But that journey of Fit to Fat to Fit was back in 2011 was one of the hardest, most humbling things I've ever done, because I thought it was going to be easy. Like, oh, you just, I'm going to gain some weight, then I'm going to lose it. But man, was I humbled. I was so wrong about so many things. But my eyes were opened, and I learned so many valuable lessons from that first experience that it really did give me some empathy for those that do struggle, and to have a much better understanding on the mental and emotional side of transformation that I never could have known had I not done this experiment.
And I really feel like, from my observation, that's one of the really unique and special things that you bring to your health and wellness education is you understand that there's a mental component to this, and that the thoughts and habits and patterns that somebody has going on inside of their head significantly impacts what they're putting into their mouth and how they're moving their body or not moving their body. So it sounds like that was one of the big awarenesses that came out of this experience, was really understanding your client's mental health and the thoughts and patterns. Were there other things that came out of this experience of really immersing yourself into almost becoming your customer?
Yeah, 100%. So I've now done this journey twice, by the way. I did it in 2011. I was like 30, 31 at the time. And then I did it again last year as a 40-year-old. So I've done it twice now. And I can say this about transformation in general. We have it so wrong in the fitness industry. We have it so backwards. We think a physical transformation is just physical. And yes, it can be calories in, calories out, macros, workout, supplements, exercises, those things are all part of the physical transformation. But the part that people struggle with is the mental and emotional side of that. They don't understand why they can't just be disciplined, why they can't just be consistent, why they can't just put down the junk food and go to the gym every day. It's because the emotions of life still happen. They don't push pause just because you're doing a diet or a weight loss program. You still have kids, you still have finances, you have relationships, you have jobs, you have stresses that affect your decision making. And that's why emotional eating is so powerful. Like, I didn't know how powerful it was until I did Fit to Fit the first time, where I realized that how powerful emotional eating is. And even I struggled with it as a trainer. And you know, I was a big proponent of eating healthy and willpower, but like I said, I was completely wrong in the way I approached it before. And having done this and being humbled, I have so much more empathy and a better understanding on how food addiction works, and the power of emotional eating and the emotional and mental challenges that come along with the physical transformation. And now I'm able to better help people overcome those mental and emotional hurdles during their physical transformation journey, because people have to become aware of what their triggers are and why they struggle with certain foods and food addictions and emotional eating. And it really comes down to self-awareness. And so if you could learn how to teach people self-awareness, then they're more in control of those addictions or those decision making, those decisions that they have to make on this physical transformation journey. That, you know, if you tackle the mental and emotional stuff first and you understand your triggers, which is hard. It's not like a simple program you follow, because it's so complex. Like, some people, some of this stems from childhood trauma that hasn't been resolved and it's just been suppressed over time, and we can't figure out why. And so this is like, sometimes you have to go to a professional therapist and figure all that out. But there's also, you know, it's very diverse, and there's not a one size fits all approach to like getting people skinny and losing weight. And so this is why I'm such a big proponent now of bringing more empathy to the fitness industry and bringing more awareness of how important it is for us to focus on the mental and emotional side of transformation. And this is why I bring things like meditation and mindfulness and gratitude journaling and positive affirmations into a physical transformation, which that stuff has nothing to do with weight loss. It really doesn't. But what it does is that it helps people overcome those mental and emotional hurdles, and it makes the physical transformation journey so much easier if they can deal with the psychological stuff first and foremost, instead of just going through, you know, the same routine of like, okay, it's January, I'm going to do it this year. Like, you know, and 2 months in, life happens. They get stressed out with their kids or finances or relationships, and, you know, they reach for food, just like some people reach for alcohol or drugs. Food is a very easy way to distract ourselves from the emotions of life. And, you know, we use different substances to numb the pain. And it's really hard to just be like, okay, I'm going to eat chicken and broccoli for the rest of my life and exercise every single day. Like, sure, if you can willpower your way through that, but 99% of the population isn't going to be able to do that.
Drew, this is why I was so excited to talk to you, is I feel like so often people come up with some sort of a surface solution that doesn't actually get at the core, doesn't solve, or what I'm hearing you saying, you're actually helping people to heal past experiences. And in a sense, by approaching it in that way, the weight loss almost becomes a side effect to the work that you're doing, where you're getting at the core and you're not, like you said, just handing them a diet of chicken and broccoli and exercise every day. Like, yes, you can lose some weight that way, but, you know, going on like that for a certain period of time, eventually it will run out because you haven't addressed the real issue. And what I'm hearing you say is you have figured out how to build a business that gets people what they want, right? Weight loss and fitness and a healthy body, but doing it in a way that is sustainable, that is real, that is healing.
Yeah. And it also shifts their perception of what success is, because so many people come into this thinking success is, if I lose X amount of weight, if I look this way, then I'm successful. If I don't lose the weight, then I'm a failure. And people are chasing after this outside source of happiness, thinking if once I get this body, then I'm going to love myself, then I'll be happy, then all my problems will go away. And this is the story that we tell ourselves when we see these transformation stories and TV shows of like, oh, this miraculous weight loss. And we think, oh, if I could just have that, then I'll be happy. And this is what's wrong with the fitness industry, is we pitch that to people like, oh, lose 30 pounds in 30 days. And people think, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be happy. But even if you lose the weight, if you don't fix those things on the inside that are haunting you, that you're just suppressing, you still won't find that fulfillment. And this is what I'm trying to tell people and shift their perception is success isn't getting the body. Success isn't getting the weight loss goal. That's cool to have, but the goal really is to learn how to love yourself now, where you're at on this journey, while you continue to work on a better version of yourself. Because if you're not fulfilled now, if you're not happy now, I promise you, you're not going to be fulfilled in the long run. Sure, there's going to be a short-term sense of happiness, like, oh yeah, I made $1 million this year, or I got this body, or I got this car. Like, yeah, that brings some short-term happiness into our life, but it doesn't bring long-term fulfillment. And so what I'm trying to do is help people fall in love with the process, because people think the process sucks. They're like, eating healthy food, dieting, weight loss, like exercise, that sucks. Like, that's not a fun process to do, but I'll do the process in order to get these results in hopes that those results will bring happiness into my life. But what I'm trying to teach people is, no, learn to fall in love with the process, not because you hate yourself, not because you want a skinny body, but because you deserve to feel happy and healthy now. And then, like you said, the weight loss, the results end up becoming a byproduct of living that healthy lifestyle consistently, because you actually are coming out of a place of self-love versus self-hate, and you're doing the process, which most people think of as like a chore. You're doing that process because it actually feels good in the long run. Sure, in the short term, it's not fun to exercise and have sore muscles and like be sweaty and like, you know, breathing heavy and like, you know, that's not fun in the short term. But in the long run, like, your muscles are getting stronger, you're getting leaner, your body's changing, you know, eating healthy food. Yeah, it's not as tasty as the junk food in the moment, but you feel better in the long run. You have better sleep, you have better digestion, you have better sex, you have better performance, you have more mental clarity, more focus, more energy throughout the day because you're eating these healthy foods. And now you're not doing it for the results. You're doing it because you realize that you're worth it to feel that way all the time. And so that's where success really comes from. It's like, oh, now I'm just living this as a lifestyle. I could care less about the results because I'm fulfilled as I am. And then letting go of that attachment of, I have to have the perfect body, or I have to look a certain way because that's what society tells me to fit in. And to really break free from that and to be successful is learning how to love yourself as you are now with all your imperfections. And then, but still continue to work on a better version of yourself. And this is a great lesson for entrepreneurs as well. It's like, we think one day when I get this deal, or when I have, you know, X amount of, you know, money in my bank account, whatever it is, then I can relax, then I'll be happy. And that's the problem, is like, people never are always chasing after that happiness that is supposed to come from these outside sources.
Yeah, they're chasing the one day I will have arrived, I will have made it. And it's such an illusion. And what's so brilliant about what you just shared is you just told us a lot about your customer and your customer's journey. But in doing that, I feel like I learned a lot about you and the way that you live your life, because I know there's no way that you could help somebody navigate these things, ask these questions, really get their focus on something that's purposeful and meaningful the way that you do, unless you lived by these principles yourself.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. So what's so beautiful here, Drew, is like, I would think, a very inspired way, you stumbled upon a message and a way to share that message in a way that it felt very, very relatable to people. And I watch as entrepreneurs do this, and then they get caught in the gap between having identified an incredible product or service or message, and then actually implementing systems, processes, a team, social media message, wrapping it up in a way that it becomes consumable, shareable. And that's another part of the magic of what you have done, is you have really taken this incredible, true story that you personally have lived, and you have packaged it up in a way that it becomes exciting, enticing, and very shareable on social media. So I have like a whole host of questions here.
Sure.
Like, just even almost logistically, tactically, how have you taken the magic of Drew Manning? Because clearly you are multi-talented, which so many CEOs and entrepreneurs are, right? You didn't know YouTube, you didn't know how to get the press and PR, and you just moved forward and you started doing these things. But to be where you are right now today, you have to understand how to make that scalable, right?
Yeah.
And to take your magic and to literally teach it to your team so that you're not doing everything. Because that's the problem I see a lot of people do, is they'll create a product or service, and then they continue to do it all themselves. Share with us a little bit, kind of how you made that transition into growing and building a team, and then some of the things
Sure.
that you're doing right that are working right now for you.
Yeah. Sure, that's a great question, and I'll try and summarize it because this has been a 10-year journey. So this is the longest job I've ever had in my life. This fit job, I guess you can say. So a lot of it has been experimentation because I didn't grow up with an entrepreneurial mindset. Like I grew up with more of a blue collar kind of mindset, like work X amount of hours, put your head down, put your time in, and then eventually it'll all pay off in the end, hopefully. So when I stumbled upon Fit to Fat to Fit and the success of that, I didn't know what I was doing. So I would say for like the first 6 or 7 years of this Fit to Fat to Fit experiment, I got very lucky. Like I was making money, but I didn't really have any structure to my business. It was just me, my wife at the time. We were just kind of winging it, doing the best we could, kind of hustling, finding deals here and there. And then that's where I realized, like, man, if I want this to grow, like they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together, go with someone else, right? Like, so I realized I needed help. And so I think about 4 years ago, I stumbled upon a team out of Florida that really saw my brand and saw the potential of what I could do with online marketing, which I had no idea how to run Facebook ads and how to do ClickFunnels. And that was just totally a foreign language to me. But, joining forces with a team that had that knowledge is really where my brand started to take off. And so together, when we joined forces, they had their expertise and I had my expertise of making the content and being the face. And I had this awesome story. I know, Russell Brunson, right? Like everyone knows him, and he talks a lot about my story of Fit to Fat to Fit. How that's like the perfect hook, or right, the hook. Yeah. But I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that it was unique. It was different. You're not going to see a lot of fitness trainers do what I did because it's risky and it's hard and it's scary. It's not as simple as people think it is. And so, I had the niche of doing what I did, which separated me from everyone else. I had that powerful story and had a great marketing team. And so for a good 2 or 3 years, we did really well. But obviously, Facebook and their algorithms, like you can't rely on that solely. So since then, it's been an evolution of trying things out, failing, trying things out, maybe a little bit of success here and there. That's the thing, is like, those funny memes of like what people think success looks like, or, it's just it's just like a line, like, oh, just put in the work. Yeah, exactly. It does not work that way. It's like lots of ups and downs and like rock bottoms and like, high highs and low lows and a lot of in betweens. But it's right now, I'm in a better place because now I have a new team that has expertise in helping grow a business from more of a structured standpoint, whereas before it was just like hustling, doing Facebook ads and leading them to ClickFunnels and making a bunch of money. Now there's more structure of like, I have a CEO, I have a marketing team, I have a couple, I have a chief a marketing officer, a chief operations officer, and so I have help from some professional people to help structure this in a way to where it's not just me growing the brand. And honestly, the end goal for me is not to be the face of the brand forever. Like, and so I think the lesson here is learning to be flexible and versatile as the market shifts. Like where I talked about Facebook and the algorithms and how they've changed over the years. Like people died during that, or not died, but just kind of their businesses died because they put all their eggs in a basket. And you have to be flexible and being able to adjust. And I think that's the lesson to be learned here, is like, don't get stuck in your ways. Don't let pride and your ego get in the way of being able to be flexible and change things up. And maybe you might look like a failure in certain people's eyes, but you got to learn how to adjust with the times. And I think that's kind of what I'm still learning how to do. Like, I still have there's still a lot of opportunity for my business in the long run, but it takes time. I think sometimes we just want instant results. We want instant gratification, just like on weight loss. We want like the weight loss to be linear and it does not happen that way. And so anyways, I think that's a big lesson for me that I'm learning on the entrepreneur side.
Yeah. When you make the decision to be an entrepreneur, not only are you signing up for a roller coaster ride, like you're making a decision and a commitment to be willing to constantly evolve. that's what I'm hearing you say. Like,
Yeah.
for a time, Facebook ads, they were incredible in the early days, weren't they, Drew? They were just they were
Yes. Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's changed. And there's other things that are really amazing today, right? And so it's being willing to make that shift and that change and pivot and not getting stuck in your ways as you described. And the other thing that it sounded like was when you started, well, I want to call this out. You had a message and a product that was working, and then you found a team to scale. And I think too often
Yes.
people, maybe they had one product and a message that was working, but they're getting ready to put out another one and they just want to instantly scale it. And they miss the chance to create some really tight feedback loops and really iterate and refine their product and idea or whatever it is. But you had already done that. And so when you went and you found a team, as you said, it sounds like you weren't one off piecing together this team. It sounds like you found a team that had the capabilities that you needed because you had identified the message. You had the hook, even though that's not what you knew it was. Right?
Yeah.
You had the story that this qualified team could then magnify your message because you were ready for it. You had already identified that and created that.
Yeah, I think that's what it's really hard to do though. It's really hard to just, but I think for me, I think the lesson that maybe some people listening can take from this is with my fit to fit story is being willing to think outside the box and do something different that maybe no one's ever done in your industry. Because like if you're in the fitness industry, you have 6-pack abs, you have muscles, cool, you're a dime a dozen. Like what's different? What makes you different than everyone else out there that is doing the same thing? You have to find a way to find your niche to find your demographic that's going to be willing to buy from you. And for me, I didn't really know what I was doing in the beginning, but looking back now, I'm like, okay, I took a risk with something that is extreme, right? And it's scary and risky. But I think sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to think outside the box. And I think this is what makes, people like Elon Musk, who's not in the, he didn't grow up in the car industry, but he jumps into the car industry with his expertise and surround himself with the right people. But you don't have to be an expert in the industry to be successful. And I think it's hard because we get so afraid to take that leap of faith and take that risk because we're like, oh, that's what are people going to think about me, or what are people going, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that stops a lot of people. Stops a lot of people, right? Like they say.
Yeah. The other thing I'm hearing in your story is for you, it wasn't about the product. Like consistently, it's been about that customer and knowing and understanding their pain and figuring out a way to help them in their own personal journey. And too often, especially as a product designer, I see people make the mistake of being so focused on their product or their book or their podcast or their service. And really what I'm consistently hearing from you is how focused you have been on your clients and customers, and the fact that you didn't know all of the things about marketing almost didn't matter because you were leading with your heart. You were very focused on your customer. You were looking for ways to help and serve them, like you said, in a different way than anybody else was. And that helped you kind of rise to the surface.
Yeah. And I will say this though, like a lot of it was luck. And I just use that word. I don't know what the right word is, but because like I said, I was an expert when I started this. I didn't have a strategy of like, okay, how am I going to get on Dr. Oz? How am I going to get on Jay Leno? And I think this kind of applies to what I was saying before about the weight loss journey of like, we're so focused on the results that we're like, okay, I'll do the process to get these results in hopes that like, if once I get those results, then I'll be successful, then I'll be happy. And I think, what I was just saying is like, a lot of people are like, okay, how do I publish a book? How do I become the top entrepreneur of my industry? Like we're focused on the results versus like, okay, I'm going to focus on the process of what I know I'm supposed to do. And I think sometimes we want to know the how before or sometimes we don't know the how. Like on the journey, we're like, okay, here's my results. I want to get to like the top of the top, right? And do these amazing results, make $1 million a year, or get on Dr. Oz, or publish a New York Times bestselling book, right?
Yeah.
We don't know how to get there, right? And so we don't do the work, the process, because we're like, oh, we don't know how to get there. And I think the lesson to be learned in all of this is, showing up and doing the work, staying consistent, and sometimes the results will speak for themselves. It doesn't mean you shouldn't set a goal. What I'm saying though is that your happiness or your success should not be dependent on reaching those goals or those milestones, because you can still be successful in doing the process. Because I know tons of people that are not New York Times bestselling authors that have never been on TV shows and maybe have even a smaller following, and they're still killing it. They're still making a lot of money because they've learned a process that works for them, where they are making tons of money. And other people that have large followings that have all the accolades, have all those results, and still, I wouldn't say are, as successful as someone who's figured out what their process is and how that works best for them. And so, yeah, it's interesting, a lot of the parallels between the weight loss journey and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, really, there's quite a few parallels. And I think even just anybody who's on a personal growth and self-development journey as well. You mentioned, we talked about how back in the heyday, Facebook ads were awesome and incredible. And the game has changed there. And that doesn't mean Facebook ads can't be awesome now, but where is your team focused right now? I think oftentimes one of the areas of opportunity for any entrepreneur is to be really successful in creating new customers and clients, right? Getting in somebody's ear, getting in front of them. What are some things that you and your team are doing to get in front of new people who aren't familiar with Fit to Fat to Fit or haven't heard of you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's nothing sexy or like secretive or anything like that. It's diversifying, right? So we focused this past year a lot on Google, YouTube, and TikTok ads. And that's been done really well for us, but also email marketing is still up there, and text message marketing has been really good for us as of recent. And so I think it's being able to find a team that doesn't know that doesn't just focus on one specific area, but is willing to explore and experiment with different platforms and figure out what works best. And we've really focused heavily on social media content, because I think that's the biggest thing is social media content, bringing in new followers, because the more followers you can bring on, it's a numbers game. The more people see your products and services that they can buy, but then also going back to what made Fit to Fat to Fit originally pretty spectacular was thinking outside the box. And so this year my team and I are trying to implement some outside of the box things that might be flops, they might fail, but we're willing to dare greatly to figure out which one of those extreme experiments might work best for me. And I think that's all of those things that I mentioned are part of our strategy for 2022.
That's super cool. I'm excited to watch you and see what you guys land.
Yeah, you'll have to see what we have planned.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, Drew, that this business is not built on the backbone of book sales. What primarily are you selling to your customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Obviously there's the physical books that I do sell. I have 2 books now. Fit to Fat to Fit was the first one. The second one's called Complete Keto. Both of those are available on Amazon, but now we have a lot of digital products. So, 30-day programs, 60-day programs, monthly memberships. We have our own app now. We have, I have my own supplement line now. So we have, physical products and services that people can purchase. With all of that, yes, there are, products that I sell and services that I sell, but going back to my original message of Fit to Fat to Fit and empathy and a focus on the mental and emotional side, all of those things that I just mentioned have some form of mindfulness or tools to help people build that self-awareness woven into these programs. So it's not just a keto weight loss program. Yes, you're going to learn how to do that, but you're also going to learn how to meditate and journal and do gratitude list daily and do positive affirmations. Those kinds of things are woven into all of the programs, so that people come for the hook, which is the weight loss and the sexy body, which of course that's what people they think they want. But then on the back end, they're like, oh, actually, I'm really enjoying this meditation that Drew does, or I'm really enjoying, his making, you got to make your bed and do a cold shower once a day. Little things like that are implemented into these programs, which really help develop a healthier mindset.
Yeah. There's so many lessons here for people. You've been building this business for 10 years, and for 10 years, you have been deepening and amplifying the same message, essentially, which I think is really powerful, right? You have this staying power with being consistent, and you're not jumping around with different messages. So it deepens and amplifies over the years, which I think is really incredible. And, over time, your product offering has grown too, right? First, it was probably different programs. Now you have an
Yeah.
app, now you have physical products. And again, it magnifies your offering, and there's different ways that people can consume your information, or the ways
Yeah.
that they can get help and benefit from you, which I think is an
Yeah.
important lesson for people to learn.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to try new things. Like, yeah, like I'm on TikTok, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's for like little kids and dancing. It's like, yeah, sure, that's on there too. But like, learning these new platforms and being open to trying new things that are outside your comfort zone is a part of the entrepreneurship process, I would say, to diversify and find a way to get more followers or to attract your tribe. Because for some people it's a podcast, for other people it's a book or an Instagram post or a Facebook post or a TikTok post. Like, you have to find where your demographic is, and you can't just wait for people to come to you.
And that's the thinking that ultimately had you kind of stumble upon this whole story in the first place, right? Just
Yep.
being willing to try new things and test, and I would even dare say play with ideas.
Yeah, there you go.
Ultimately led you to this incredible hook, as Russell would say.
Yep.
Drew, I could talk to you forever. This is so
Yeah.
good. And like you were saying, like even just talking about your own customer's journey has so much application to entrepreneurs and how they live their life. And I love how you are giving them what they want, which is health and fitness, physical body results. But you're also at the same time handing them what they need, a thing that will give it the results staying power and much greater impact than any, I don't know, swimsuit picture could ever give to somebody. So I want to just acknowledge you for that. I think that's so incredible. And like that's why I wanted you on this show. Is I just love an entrepreneur who's very real and true and genuinely hoping to help people, right? You are here to serve people. And that's what you were motivated by. And I can very clearly see that both in how you've built your business and how you live your life. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show and for being so open and sharing your story.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it, Katie.
Yeah, I've got a few rapid fire questions for you here at the
end.
end.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm
not
ready.
Over yet. What is a book that you keep on your nightstand and you frequently revisit?
That's a good question. I would say the 4 Agreements I've read, like I usually read a few times a year. So probably that one, but I mean, those 3 that I mentioned, I've read multiple times. Other ones?
You don't have to find more. That's good.
Well, there's more. We'll do those 3.
They're all exceptional books, by the way.
Yeah.
For anybody who's listening, they're all really exceptional.
Yeah.
And I like that question of revisiting, because I think those are books that really have impact on our lives.
Yeah. Very true.
What's something that you do consistently every day?
Journal and meditate as of recent. Yeah, those have been really, really healing for me as of recent. And I've been doing them since I mentioned, 5 or 6 years ago when I had my rock bottom moment. And it's been a part of my life since then. And I wish I would have learned this as younger, but I think I was just too prideful, or too prideful to learn new things. Like, no, these things work for me. But man, there's so much help outside of our comfort zone that we're just not, we just don't know about until we try it. And so I think for me, like, I wish I would have been more brave to try newer things outside my comfort zone at a younger age.
Well, and what you're sharing is totally free. Anybody can start doing it right now in the next 10 minutes and start to experience some of the results from those things. Yet sometimes we tend to overshoot things and we want to overcomplicate life. And this meditation and journaling, it's so simple that it would be easy for somebody to miss how significant that could potentially be in your life. But listen to Drew. I mean, I just asked him what's something he does consistently every day, AKA values and sees as being important. And you just said journaling and meditation. Are there prompts that you use in your journaling? Or are you just trying to extract whatever's in your head? Are there questions that you're asking yourself?
That's a good question. So the journaling is, I start out with the gratitude list of like about 5 things and start from there. But as of recently, I've just been free flowing with whatever comes to my mind. And the goal for me is not really necessarily having a structure, but just journaling for a page per day, whatever comes to my mind. And for me, that's kind of my goal. I think it'll evolve where I'll eventually like, okay, this works, but how do I make this better? And then I'll probably add some prompts, like some questions, because I've seen some other, like I've seen like the 5-minute journal and some other journal prompts, and I'm like, oh, that's actually easier that way, because then I don't have to think of what the prompts are. I just kind of answer the questions, and that kind of leads me down different rabbit holes of like, oh, I can learn these lessons from this prompt, and what I'm saying. So I think it evolves, and I think the other thing, the lesson to be learned there too, is it doesn't have to be like, don't put pressure on yourself it has to be perfect, even with your meditation or your gratitude list or your positive affirmations. Like, it doesn't have to be this huge, amazing thing. It could be the small, simple thing that you stay consistent with that brings benefits into your life. And I think some people judge too harshly of like, okay, was this perfect enough? Did I meditate perfectly today? Those kinds of things. Like, just be consistent, and then you'll naturally grow and evolve from there.
Love that you have highlighted this willingness to evolve. I think it's so important. My family and I, we just up and moved to Puerto Rico, and I'm in a new environment, and my work schedule looks different. And like the first couple of days, I was like, whoa, hold on, what did I do? Not that we aren't enjoying it. It's actually been fantastic, but my work life was like a little bit chaotic at first. And I've been having to give myself permission to evolve. Like, what I was doing in my previous environment doesn't necessarily work now in this new environment. So being willing to give yourself permission to evolve. And, one way of journaling may have worked for you for 5, 6, 7 years, maybe 1 year, who knows, but being willing to evolve that, I think that's so important. So good.
Yeah.
Drew, is there some advice that you've been given in your life that has been beneficial, helped you in your
that's a good question. I wouldn't say it's necessarily advice. It would be probably things I've learned from books or quotes that have really stuck with me. One that pops up right now that comes to my mind is a quote from Rumi that says, "The cure for pain is in the pain." And I think this is a good lesson, because a lot of us, when we go through pain, we want to turn away from it and run away from it. None of us like pain, right? And so we don't really take the time to learn what the lessons are from that pain. We just like numb the pain. I mean, instantly, if there's pain in our life, we try and run away from it or suppress it or numb it. And that's a lesson for me that I've learned, is when there's emotional pain in our life, sure, you can numb it with food, with drugs, with alcohol, with sex, with social media, with movies, TV shows, even books. Like, there's a lot of ways to numb the emotional pain of life. Instead of facing the pain, turning towards it and say, what do you have to teach me? Like, what are you here for? And I think that's a great way to look at the pain that comes from our life. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? You can see it and say, why is it happening for me? What am I supposed to learn from this? And it's a really good perspective to have when you go through a painful experience of like, why is this happening to me? You can flip it on its head and say, okay, why is this happening for me? And then you learn those lessons from it, and it helps with the growth and the healing process. Doesn't mean you're not going to experience the pain. You're still going to experience the pain. Just don't be afraid to turn towards the pain. Try not to numb it. Try not to distract yourself from the pain, but try and see what that pain has to teach you.
Drew Manning, that was incredible. That was so
Thank
good.
you.
So good. I just want to like sit here in a moment that you just shared. As you guys can hear, Drew is an exceptional human being, exceptional entrepreneur, exceptional father, exceptional teacher, leader. And if you want to stay in touch with Drew, go to his website, fit2fit.com. Where are the best social channels to find you? What are your handles there?
They're all the same. Fit to fat to fit, just like the website, all with the number 2. That's the name of my book as well. And so it's pretty consistent, and I'm on all the platforms.
There's that consistency thing again. I love it.
Yep.
Drew, thank you so much for being on this show. I really appreciate the time to really extract what's working now and for the last 10 years for you, and really appreciate you being so open and sharing your story with us. And I know that there are many people who have been inspired in their own entrepreneurial journey today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie. Have a good one.
Yeah. And for everybody listening, this is What's Working Now.